how, generally speaking, do trade agreements affect macroeconomy?
Well, the big thing about trade agreements is that the gainers gain more than the losers lose. So for an economy overall, if you just look at the totals, trade agreements tend to be very good things. The problem is that even though the gainers in total gain more than the losers lose, there are people who lose. And sometimes the people who lose are the most vulnerable in a society, tend to be low wage earners and people like that. And we as a society haven't come up with a very good way of allocating or distributing the gains from trade across all the different people that we have in the economy.
Okay. What is your opinion of regional trade agreements such as NAFTA or the EU? Should these type of agreements should be encouraged or discouraged?
Regional trade agreements are not as good as an agreement worldwide to go to the ideal. Let me start that again. Regional agreements are not as good as the worldwide ideal of comparative advantage. The worldwide ideal of comparative advantage is that every nation in the world would specialize in those things that it did best, and then would trade with other nations for the things that they did the best. And in the absence of trade barriers and protection, that causes world income to be the highest that it can be. The reality, though, is far from the ideal, as nations engage in very self-seeking trade policies. And in that kind of world, there is a role for regional trade agreements. If we can't have worldwide comparative advantage, then at least we can reduce the barriers between the United States and Canada and Mexico, which is what the North American Free Trade Agreement did. Like many other trade agreements, it was true that the gainers gained more than the losers lost from NAFTA, but a number of the losers are people that we didn't want to lose. And a great example of that is corn farmers in Mexico. They had a viable and sustainable business growing corn for the Mexican domestic market, and U.S. corn imports coming across the border. I mean, we have such low prices of corn that we put those individuals out of business. Well, in the ideal world of comparative advantage, they'd have gone and done something else, but their opportunities in some low-income areas of Mexico are very limited.
So what might happen if the United States were to quit NAFTA and, say, pursue a worldwide comparative advantage trade agreement?
If it succeeded, then there would be benefits all around. The fear is that you quit NAFTA and lose the advantages that it has gained, and you don't get anything in return because the world trade agreements are always so very hard to hammer out. They take years and years and years, and even then tend not to fully succeed.
And do you believe that the U.S. should be stricter with the terms of its trade agreements? And do you feel that these regional trade agreements help countries really cater the trade agreements to their needs?
I think actually a process of slow change is the best on trade agreements. The politicians and negotiators always want to negotiate a trade breakthrough, and I understand that, the desire to do something dramatic. I think in actual practice it works better to try to find places where we have little distortions, little anomalies that are taking place, places where all parties could benefit, and selectively put those into place. There's just no glory in doing it.